Baruch here with genConnect and Greg Lindsay. So Greg, what does it mean to engineer for serendipity?
Well, I mean, the phrase is an oxymoron, right? A serendipitous encounter is one that's lucky, unforeseen. The notion of engineering it would seem to be impossible. But, I'm interested in the notion of, how do we create more fertile environments where people, you don't know the right mix of people, you don't know what you're looking for, you don't know what the outcome should be, but how do you bring together like a bunch of really smart people in a space where they can share ideas better? Because so much of the knowledge that we're looking for when it comes to innovation, that word, so much of it can't be done these days by one person. Everything was done in teams, and those teams are typically sort of organized hierarchically, right? So if you have big pharma research, they're trying to put together the best teams of scientists money can buy, and they're failing at it horribly, billions of dollars wasted. And so I'm interested in writing about the environments and the people and the technologies that are figuring out ways to spot the gaps in the various social networks there, to figure out who's not really talking together that should be, and how do we bring those people together, or how do we create environments where they'll run across each other, and that spark, that missing link between their two sets of ideas can be bridged.
Doesn't that seem irresponsible, though, to rely on just seeing what will happen for some of the biggest and most important issues of our time?
Well, that's funny because the best research campus that ever was, that gave us the laser, that gave us radar as we know it, that gave us satellites, was Bell Labs. And of course, Bell Labs had a structured campaign, but what they did was they took scientists in different disciplines and put them together, and they took theorists and they took practitioners, material scientists, and put them in the same rooms, and they made everyone go down a corridor where they would bump into each other. And that was how Bell Labs operated and gave us, the flowering of American science. To me, what's fascinating is that we still have not come up with any better way to organize the search for science or ideas or anything else. And that's why I think there's been a resurgence in the notion of cities and technology companies in cities, because they realize that if you want to have really good ideas, it helps to bump into a lot of strangers.
All right, bring this down to a micro level for me. What can our viewers do to increase the odds of serendipitous encounters in their own lives? Romantic, business, anything.
Well, I mean, it operates at a couple of levels. So there's definitely still a mental level about it. How do you mentally prepare yourself to recognize that serendipitous moment when it happens, that burst of inspiration? There's a lot of psychologists who are thinking about that. How do I keep focus on that? And to me, the most interesting version of that is the whole notion of being multidisciplined. The moment you say you're multidisciplined, you're still thinking in disciplines. We have to get to a point where we're anti-disciplinary, where you're operating across all these different fields at once. And that's something that I'm researching now. There's a lot of psychological stuff. But to me, the real interesting part is basically you need to be in an environment where you can have increased diversity. How do you come across people that you don't normally find? And I think that's what urban living is about, as someone who writes a lot about cities. And I think that's really a sort of notion of, then there's a whole technology layer you can use too. Like there's a whole, romantically, the best way you can engineer serendipity romantically is to use Tinder, my friend. That's the whole generation of kids are basically discovering that the best way to find your romantic partner is to be in an area where lots of other people are using Tinder, and then you can start sorting it out and going from there. So I think there's going to be a whole version of Tinder for business, and Tinder for science, and Tinder for all these sorts of things that are going to get better and better as opposed to, is he or she cute?
Well, thank you for helping us find serendipity in our lives. And for more on serendipity, be sure to check out genConnect.